Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
One of the top most requested skills from PowerSuit members is strategic thinking. And often we think about strategy as being this very big, highbrow, giant, massive future visionary planning and thinking through really complicated ways, like all that really hard strategy stuff. But there are really, really easy ways to practice strategic thinking regardless of what we do. We say easy, but actually, while the tools might be easy, the discipline of thinking strategically is really hard to teach, but it's something that we can all learn if we are happy to be a bit vulnerable, put aside our instincts to want to be right and reinforce our current thinking, and try tackling things from a slightly different viewpoint. So we thought we'd cover that today, a little bit of what we've learned over our careers, and then in the last couple of weeks teaching a bit of this.
Yeah, our brains have definitely been in it because I think women historically haven't been, well, we know historically women haven't been in rooms where strategy is often formulated or come up with, like that we've been excluded from those rooms. And so there's always been this mystique around what is strategy and how can women involve themselves. And there's almost not been a playbook to do just that. So there's a lot of misconceptions around what strategy is. I think that's one interesting insight. And then the other is obviously our unique perspective, and we've talked about this quite a bit with, um, how we give people advice or how we mentor people, in that our unique perspective is quite biased. Like, it's our unique perspective, and we can apply that to strategy and strategic thinking as well, and it's very normal.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that comes with the confusion around strategy and it not being something you tend to do in a very serious in a job title role until later in your career is a lot of us think, and I've had this conversation so many times, and I remember even at our last startup, a lot of people wanted to be more involved in strategy. And two things happened. One, I was constantly amazed with how people overlook everyday strategy because we see it as this big thing that you have to be in a room to do rather than something that you can just do all the time. And then the second thing that I found always really fascinating is of everyone I invited to start thinking strategically, I would say 60% hated it. 60% when actually faced with what strategic thinking looks like, were like, actually not for me. I would rather go back to being to delivery, to having a really clear defined task to be able to complete with very clear defined success measures, the coming up with those things and the analyzing things and dealing with ambiguity and unknowns and challenging thinking often looks to people who don't enjoy it like going around in circles. And you often hear people, I just want to jump to action. I'm action motivated. Strategy isn't that. It's actually putting that stuff to the side and getting really comfortable with digging into things, challenging thinking, and not making visible progress in a way that we often do, where we're like ticking things off and feeling like we're moving forward. Because strategy is about moving in the right direction, which takes a lot of analysis. So, those are two things that I've seen, which led us to the way we have rolled out this latest masterclass and then also ran a workshop yesterday, which we tried some different things in order to get people thinking differently. So, do we want to dig into some of those things first?
Yes, let's do it. I was actually reflecting upon, some of our people at our old organization and thinking, what was it that like, what was their need when it came to being involved in some of the decision making that went into what we actually did and the direction we were heading? And I think there's possibly 2 things. The first is that they wanted their unique perspective. No, I don't know what they wanted. I'm just guessing. I'm just wondering if there's an innate human desire to actually being involved in shaping something. So I think there's something there, and the shaping is the hard part, right? Like it's an actual process. And so I think there's a human desire to go, I don't want to just be handed something, but I want to be involved in shaping it. So that's fair. And as you get there's lots of everyday things, to your point, that they can shape things. The second is, I wonder if there's a misconception, again, if you're not in those rooms or don't understand what strategy is there a misconception that it's just ideation and they want to be in a space where they can brainstorm? Is that as simple as
I
that?
actually yes, I think there's 2 I think you're well, I mean, who knows? We actually don't know the answer. I think I feel very similar, but slightly different. I think there is a huge status that comes with strategy. People want to be strategic thinkers. We throw the word strategy around, strategic planning, strategic this, strategic thinking, when most of it's not actually strategic at all. It's just like we love to use the word because it feels important, it feels clever. We know intuitively that the people who are paid the most and in the most senior positions tend to be very strategic. And it is a skill that therefore feels like something that we want to be known for. And then, secondly, I think when it comes to wanting to be involved in decision making, yes, I think everyone likes to have control. Well, not everyone, a lot of people like to have control and autonomy. However, there's a continuum. So I think most people, and this is I think, fair and how the world should operate because not everyone should be involved in strategy or needs to be involved or likes being involved. That full ambiguity, that kind of early design thinking where it's like so many unknowns, so many assumptions, so much stuff that we need to really dig into is hard, it's challenging, it takes ages. Whereas a lot of people actually like to have maybe 4 or 5 options presented to them or some level of clarity. And that's a whole other stage as well. So I feel like it's a huge area. And I think what we mistake is that all of us want to be involved in the really beginning part. And actually, most of the time, that's a very certain personality type and skill set that thrives in that, and most
Mm,
people just find it really annoying and
yeah.
hard.
The thing that I think ties together the workshop that we did yesterday and the mini masterclass that we delivered to power suitors probably 2 weeks ago now, is that we, often jump straight to, assuming we know what the problem is or what we're doing here, and then we're ideating or developing a solution or figuring out an approach to a solution based on an assumed problem or need, and I think that's how to tie together those 2 things. I'll get to like, I'm
Do
gonna
you
articulate
just out of interest, do you actually think? Because I don't think that. I think people don't even think about a problem. Like, I think most of ideation is, "Here's a cool idea." It's like, "I wanna do this thing." Like, "I wanna redesign our homepage. I wanna update our branding." They're not, like, thinking about a problem to solve. It's like,
I think that
"This is
word's getting yeah,
cool."
yeah, yeah, and I probably used the wrong words. I think it's like it's the need. I think we're focused on a need, right? And it's the same thing with I need a promotion, I need recognition, or I need a new title, or I need that job, or I need, this website. So there's a need that we're focused on, and we're not going and this is what I think we were getting to is, quite often it's like, but what is the problem that we're solving? You're right. Like I use them interchangeably, but I didn't mean to. It's like
No, no, no,
there's a
I get it.
need, but it's like,
Yeah.
what is the thing we're trying to do? Like you need a promotion. What is the underlying problem to be solved here? And like why? Like what is the actual thing going on underneath? And so that's what I loved about tying together what we did yesterday, which was in an influence context, but it was actually about getting under using the same tool uh, and getting to actually the underlying motivation. And it's the same thing with our strategic thinking. It's like, what are we even solving? What is the actual problem at hand here? And it's using the same tool, which we should chat about.
Yeah, and I think and basically all of this to say, what we're trying to if you want to practice strategic thinking, what you have to aim to do with all opportunities in life is move straight out of reactive mode and into response mode almost. It's the idea of slowing down, taking a step back, fighting the instinct to jump to action. I've had a bunch of conversations over the last couple of weeks about how we really tie doing with achieving. And what that means is that we feel like by ticking off a whole bunch of stuff, we're achieving a lot. But actually, when we talk about strategy, there's the two parts to it. One is moving forward, the other is moving in the right direction. And often we don't do that second part and think, am I going in the right direction? Because we're so busy trying to tick that dopamine hit of achievement, which often is achieving the wrong things or nothing or nothing. And I say that with those examples because in tech, we always laugh. We always laugh at people who want an app. We always laugh at people who want a homepage update. We always laugh at people who want to rebrand because it's such a common request, a new button, a color change, and none of them solve any problems. Like no one ever comes with a, here is this big challenge we're facing. There's a customer problem or there's a growth problem. Here's all the solutions we could come up with, and here's what we recommend based on evidence. It's always such and such has had a rebrand. We need a rebrand, or such and such. Like if we put my article at the top of the homepage, or it'll. I don't know. I don't actually. We kind of in tech go dot dot dot. It'll achieve what?
Mm. I think it's because probably there are product and design well, I know it is because there's product and design people that form a core what is it? The 3, legs of the stool. They form one of the legs of those stools, right? And I think there's a very certain way of thinking in that environment that is, learned or some are born with it. You happen to have a strategic thinking skill as your top 5, but for those that aren't in those environments or don't have it innately, it is something that you just pick up on your little bits of experience, and it could have been that that app actually did genuinely solve a problem. Like Uber has solved the transportation problems of the world, and so you extrapolate the information you know, not understanding that what they were trying to do was, oh, there's an amazing story about Uber actually, and here I am like chatting about it, and I didn't go and do my research of what it is, but they were trying to get people from point A to point B in the most seamless way possible. And so it had nothing to do with an app, right? Like it just happened to be in the hands of someone and delivered in that way. But for someone that's not in that third leg of that stool way, who have been formally taught to think that way or taught by experience to think that way or have that skill innately, I can see where people get to. And there's a level of empathy because you just take what experience and knowledge you have and you're trying and you care deeply about the thing. It's just not, yeah, we have to
Yeah, I
stop.
agree. It's
Yeah.
we this is what we taught yesterday as well. We were talking about the 5 whys, but it looks the same. So Uber was solving a problem of getting people from A to B, and the solution they came up with was an app that had ride sharing. They could have come up with 100 different ways to solve that, and they probably discounted a bunch of them and implemented a strong strategy. What it looks like if you're not used to strategic thinking is an app was a good idea. And so you go building an app makes you successful. And that's why you see the flood of apps showing up on the app stores. And even actually my girlfriend and I laugh about it. You go to an event these days, you do basically anything these days, you order food and there's an app and we're like, the app feels like the absolute worst solution to the problem of me ordering food or navigating around an event. It feels cheaper and faster for you to have just put up a one-page website that had the agenda on it, or for me to order from a menu, but that's exactly your example is perfect. A bunch of people would have seen successful apps, and rather than seeing it as a problem that was solved through an app, they think the app itself is the solution to everything.
I know. I have to say a few things because, like, you've just itched something that's so annoying for me these days. One is the order from table. Oh my goodness, it is so frustrating. I just want to place my order, even if I have to walk up somewhere and place my order and then sit down. But I have to scan the QR code and then I've got to add payment or download a thing and find the thing. And oh my goodness, hate that, hate it, hate it. Do not like having to download things in conferences, for that same reason, just having something else clunk up,
Details.
super temporary super temporary, yes, and then I remember us going to a community event thing, and they were like, "Oh, let's develop a new LinkedIn so we can, connect with one another," and it was this swipey thing, and I was like, "What is this?" And I opened it once at the community event, and I'll never open it up again because LinkedIn, like, it solved it already. I don't know why we're doing, this. And then the last thing, which is so annoying, and it's this is different, but same, and I just wanted to, like, vent about it. When you call up customer service nowadays, this is what happens. You have a very frustrating tick box, checkbox conversation with someone on the other end of the phone who isn't genuinely listening. They're just covering a checkbox thing, so your internet's down or blah, blah, blah's down. Now, let's say we get to the end of that conversation. Like, we've already used so much of our time. It's probably been a relatively frustrating experience. Maybe we finally got somewhere in the end and we just want to hang up and leave, but they are required to go through all these extra steps. And maybe this is like strategic thinking gone wrong and problem solving gone wrong. Like my problem, I am now solving their problem in them collecting a bunch of data from me and compliance. Like they're like, so I just want to confirm what we spoke about today and what the problem was today, and like then what we did about it. And I'm like, they keep me on the phone for a minute after. And I'm like, that's an example of problem solving strategic thinking gone wrong because you've just made my life harder and more frustrating. Have you ever have you noticed that? I've noticed they
Yes,
all do
and
it now.
I think that's a brilliant example of how strategy goes awry and how we can all practice it wherever we are in an organization. And I think the way you do that is at a top level, they've probably gone, one of our strategies for this year is to reduce our cost to serve customers, to add order and how we're going to go about doing that is we're going to add automation, we're going to collect more data to make sure that we know what kinds of problems we're solving, which will probably feed into our another strategy around how we improve our product or service to mitigate the biggest problems. All of that stuff makes so much sense at a top level. As it moves down, instead of going, how do we best solve this problem and bring in the context of customer success being a strategy for the business as well, it ends up going to, my thing is I'm going to check off this, this, and this to collect the data, and I'm going to ask the questions and I'm going to fill in the report to make sure that we tick one thing off, completely missing the underlying problem, which is we want to improve the customer experience through having faster calls, more data, solve the thing. And you see it all the time. On the flip side, these two companies are not current partners of ours, and I think you should be. Air New Zealand and One New Zealand. I called One New Zealand the other day, and it was the most beautiful customer experience I have had in, I'm going to say, decades. It was, she answered the phone, immediately saying where she was, and it was in New Zealand, which I know is a real bugbear of when people offshore customer service, and it's people who don't understand the context, they don't, all of that. So she acknowledged she was in New Zealand, and then she had full rein to help me. So she um, asked really smart. You could tell she was a smart, capable person who was trying to solve my problem. And then she followed up by text afterwards. But she's going to connect me with another department. And I was like, wow, customer service in this is like, this is where they've turned in-depth human customer service into a strategic benefit for the business rather than the cluster that you
Yeah.
normally
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, 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 great. Okay, well, that's good. That's good, and I love that you use that example because that is actually we can tie this all back to the top and what was the intent of what we're trying to do? What are we trying to solve, and how do we get there? And one of the tools we used for both our workshop yesterday, we've alluded to it to a few times, and then in our strategic thinking, which is really getting to the heart of the problem and what we're trying to do here, is the 5 whys. And not in a checkboxy sense, but actually getting stopping, like you said, for a minute and rather to racing to doing, stopping, getting super clear on what is the underlying thing that we are trying to do. What is the underlying motivation? And asking why a bunch of times to get there and then testing it to be like, if that is solved, is that actually it? And getting to the heart of it, the core of the onion.
Yeah, and this is the reason we wrote about it in our newsletter too, and the reason we wanted to highlight it is because this was a topic of conversation amongst the two of us, probably several hours in the weeks leading up to the mini masterclass, because we knew we wanted to teach this tool. We know how powerful it is, but we also know how poorly it is used and how you can't teach the thinking behind it. You can only teach the tool. An example of that, and actually yesterday we had some fabulous examples. There was a peer who went through the exercise. So the exercise is very straightforward. You start with whatever your first thing is. So like I need a promotion. And then you ask why couple of times, 5 times, 3 times, 1 time, whatever. It's not about tick boxing through the number of times. It's about getting genuinely curious about why you may be thinking that. So this two peer yesterday, we asked them to do it with each other. So one of them starts with their thing, the other one asks them why, and so they workshop it together. And the challenge we gave to the person asking is your job, usually the default for most of us is we want to really support someone, we want to encourage them, we want to help them solve the problem that they've come to us with. And actually, the job of asking the five whys is to totally turn that mindset in reverse and really try and almost black hat it. Are you sure this is the right thing? Now, are you sure this is the right thing? What about this? What if you thought about it this way? And really perform the role of helping someone get somewhere very different with their thinking. Very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Sits outside, we don't get enough feedback. We find sometimes direct conversations confronting. We tie emotions to our work. So, having that kind of conversation is not something a lot of us practice. This peer said they made it 2 or 3 whys in and went, yep, we're good. And then because they had time, they kept chatting and they both said afterwards, we ended up somewhere so different because we kind of took the pressure off. We were trying to be polite to each other, so we didn't want to jump in with solutions. And even having the extra 5 minutes, they were like, wow, we would have told you 5 minutes ago this was the end. And by just digging a little deeper. And I just thought that was such a great example of how we misconstrue it sometimes.
Well, or rush it really, because we gave them that awkward time to get through it, which to your point of not many people love this part of the process and want to opt out is because it is filled with ambiguity and it is uncomfortable. And an example of the strategy part in a day-to-day role. So there are a lot of really personal examples yesterday of what people felt they needed, and then where they got to was very different. And but for the strategy part of it, it's the same thing of you're in a role and you are responsible for growth. And so I need a new website for this growth. And you are vying for resource for that website. And the it's shiny and it looks great and it's part of brand and it's all this stuff. And so you can justify it in so many different ways. But if you're to stop and go through this process, ultimately, you're gonna end up at not a new website probably, and that's really hard for people to let go of, because then what is
One of many
true,
options.
one of many options. You're right, and you may be, but you might not be, and I think that's what's probably uncomfortable is you don't get that to your point of, like, the achievement is now gone, and it could be something that is so different from that visual achievement of your time at that workplace.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's funny once you start doing the 5 whys a lot, you clock it in other people when they don't so quickly, and, like, I have to bite my tongue a lot because the number of times people come proudly telling me about an output, and I'm just like, "Duh, duh, duh," working back going, oh, you haven't moved the needle at all. You have focused so much on this output because it feels like a cool thing to do that you haven't actually tackled anything. And I just feel like if we could teach that one thing, and actually we can't, but if people could take that awkward space and really challenge yourself and see success as getting further away from when you started rather than closer, you unlock so much more value. And the second part, like, yes, I think you're correct in that that's really challenging in itself. But the second thing that I felt was so impressive yesterday that I think is worth calling out is all of us have egos. And really digging into the five whys often unearths some very uncomfortable emotions. So, like the website, for example, that's a great one of it looks pretty, it's shiny, all of that stuff. So when you actually do the 5 whys in that, what it might boil down to is I want to look the problem I'm solving is I want to look really good for my manager, or I want to be able to tell my friends or showcase this beautiful piece of work that I've achieved. And that's your motivation. It's actually not about growing the company at all. You haven't really considered the best ways to do it. And the reason I say all that is what I found so impressive yesterday was a couple of people were brave enough in front of everyone to say their underlying need or motivation was actually quite emotionally driven and personally driven. And I just thought that is the absolute point of this exercise and strategy is to recognize, of course, we're all motivated by selfish reasons, and it helps us unearth them, it helps us identify them, and then attack them or move them away so that we can actually focus on what drives the business forward. And I just thought that was such a cool example to go bang on. So many people aren't that self-aware and they just think that they're doing something for the company, but they're actually doing it for their own interests.
Totally. How do you reverse out of that then? Once you find, because that's a dead end point. You're like, oh, these so we've gotten to underlying motivations and needs, and they really aren't aligned with what we are effectively trying to get, be it a shared outcome or a positive outcome um, for, I don't know, whatever task we're doing. How do we reverse out of that and start again from
I think there's 2 things, and it's a mindset shift. Firstly, like, I get told this all the time, like, "How do you start so many businesses? You must have so many good ideas." And I immediately stop and go, "I never have ideas. I am not an ideas person." I rebel against the concept of ideas, but somewhere along the line, we've all been embedded with this idea of the genius ideas person, and being an ideas person makes you really valuable and smart. So all of us, when you look around an office, and this actually came up in yesterday's workshop as well, when someone said they just get inundated with ideas from people, and all those people, I bet you, feel like they're being super valuable and making an impact, and all they're doing is adding so much noise and annoyance to someone's plate. What we are is problem solvers. When you start a business, you if you start with an idea, it is very high likelihood you're gonna fail, because your idea could be motivated by any number of things. Unless it is solving a problem for a group of people, it is gonna get no traction. So, strategic people solve problems rather than create ideas. And the second part of that, which I think really sort of solidifies it, if you ever say, "I have an idea," hold that idea in, because while ideas just exist in the ether and they're all around us and they aren't tethered to anything, solutions only exist in context of a problem. So if you, instead of having an idea, say, "I have a solution," and force yourself to say, "I have a solution," then you really need to be able to explain what the problem you're solving is as well. And I also recommend for people to only ever have 3 to 5 solutions when they first start talking about it, not 1. So if you want to reverse engineer the process, if you've only got 1 idea, you haven't gone through it. As soon as you get to the point that you have a clearly defined problem and 3 to 5 solutions, you know you've actually really challenged yourself to come up with something that's gonna solve something.
love it? Great advice, Nat.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think that our listeners will find that really helpful and would love to hear anyone's thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like some examples too. Like we could workshop some of these over the coming weeks if someone's got something that they've hit a brick wall with, or an idea that they're, yeah, and we're happy to work back through the 5 whys, and sort of explain, well, it's yeah, it can be challenging for to enter someone else's brain, but yeah, I feel like it's such a, if we could unlock this in the Power Suit network, and I'm not saying, like, so many people think like this already, and we notice it in workshops we run anyway, that there is always a group who's like, "Yeah, I've already done this, done it in my head, whatever." But for everyone who feels like they kind of come up against this brick wall, it'll be so much, you'll find work so much more fun and so much more rewarding when you can really work through this. So, come to the workshop, come to become a member and go through the 5 whys with other people. It's a really nice way to do it.
I think a good indication of that is that when we invite people to share their fails with us, I can come up against a lot in my earlier career where I would come up with an idea related to something we needed, and it was just that, and I would feel like my ideas weren't really listened to, or I didn't feel slighted, but I was like, man, it'd be nice to have a win sometimes. And I think that's what it was. And so for me to be vulnerable and sharing that now, I can directly tie it to, like, I didn't think deeply enough about all the different ways we could solve the problem. And you can see that in a room when you're trying to crowdsource people's fails. Like, they're really reluctant to either share them or they don't have any because they haven't dug deep enough.
Well, and the other thing that I would say with that example, because I think, I mean, like, everyone's guilty of that. We've all come up with ideas because we've seen something cool and shiny or whatever. Like, I feel like we should just acknowledge that, like, it's not embarrassing to have done that because everyone's done it. Um, but I feel like the when that concept of needing a win, I think that's another part of strategy of, it's not about you, and I think that's a really hard thing to separate when we are measured on individual performance and we want to be high achievers. And so we see it as a individual, like, if my idea gets accepted, I won and it's gonna make me feel really good. Whereas strategy, if you're in a room of people, it's actually like, It's we are solving this problem. It doesn't matter about who came up with the solution. And actually, what you and I do a lot is we build on each other's, or someone will have something and someone will go the other way. And at the end, 99% of the time, I couldn't tell you which one of us came up with it, and I say that with quotation marks because it's actually we weren't thinking about it. We were just really focused on the problem and thinking about different ways it worked and, going back and forth on, "Does this work?" or "What if we tweaked it this way, and does it solve this?" And I think that's the separator as well in mindset of, like, you in order to be really good at it, you have to not care about it being your idea, and that's also very hard in this
Well,
world.
especially very hard for someone who's got competition as their top 5, strengths.
Well, and also if you work in a competitive
Yeah,
environment, like
exactly. Totally. And that is, like you said, performance related and your work, and whatever value can be attributed personally. So, yeah, no, I love it. All
you
great
will
tips.
find it is more successful when you are a person who's seen to be contributing rather than the person who keeps coming in with ideas that don't contribute to a problem. So it does work better. It's just one of those mindset shifts away from cause effect. If I come in with this into it's a bit more of a long game, but it will be far more successful. But we don't get taught it, so we all think we needed ideas.
Okay, well, anyone send us your problems or your needs right now, and we will workshop this with you. We're very open, very accessible. So do that. Check out powersuit.com and gonna carry on great conversations next week. Feel free to share this with anyone. If you've got a strategy day coming up or if you've got a team meeting coming up, flip this as pre-listening for people prep.
Yeah, and set that tone of, like, let's make mistakes. I that's the other thing. Gosh, now I'm going on a rant, but I love that idea of starting these workshops with failures. Like, get into the mode of celebrating things being wrong, because I think that stuff has to happen to open it up. Otherwise, it's just so hard to switch that mindset. But anyway, we'll have more on this in the future.
We will.
Friday afternoon. We're, like, chilling now.
Well, in a half an hour, we're going to still be going. Okay, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.